Who is poor in spirit? You are. Okay, so I guess the reality is not only are you poor in spirit, but all human beings are poor in spirit. But before I get into this, you're probably thinking, oh, here we go, another talk on the Beatitudes. I mean, it's such a cliche topic. We often see beautiful pictures in our grandmother's homes of, blessed are the poor, and they're just words that are thrown around, and I don't think many Christians take the time to actually look at it, pray on it, and interpret it. So today I'm going to start with the series of going through each Beatitude, and we're going to pick it apart and have a little bit of a look and see what we can pull out of it. But before I begin, I think some historical context as to what's going on will help set the mood and the tone for what we're about to look at. I'll start with a question and ask, where did Jesus start his ministry? Now, a whole heap of you will probably turn around and be like, well, it was when he turned the water to wine at the wedding, or it was when he was baptized, or maybe even on the Sermon on the Mount. We're all going to pick different places. However, I'm going to make a suggestion that Jesus' ministry actually started when he was doing carpentry work with his father Joseph. The reason why I say this is because anybody who knows carpentry knows that there needs a lot of skill and patience to do this trade. It's quite ironic, isn't it, that the creator of all the world created chairs and tables. I often say to people, imagine a table and chairs made by Jesus. It would have been perfect. But it's through this time that Jesus, even though it wasn't contrary to his character, but he would have been cultivating patience and a love for things and dealing with people and communicating, and he would have had time to ponder and think on things in his mind. Now, I know in the recent Chosen series, those that have watched it, I'm sorry, I'm about to give away a spoiler. However, in season 2, we see when it gets to the Beatitudes, Matthew helping organise a sermon. Did it happen that way? Who knows? But I do believe, without a doubt, that Jesus would have spent time in that carpentry shop, making tables, chairs, doing work for people, and he would have been constantly thinking about his ministry and where he was going to go with his ministry. You see, Jesus waited for the exact right time to start his public ministry. We see this when Mary asked him to do something at the wedding, to perform a miracle. And what was his reply to his mother? He said, "Woman, my time has not yet come." Jesus did not act on his own reasoning and course. He waited till the Father had given him approval. But while Jesus started his ministry, I wouldn't call it a public ministry as of yet, because he hadn't fully come out and announced that he was the Son of Man. However, he did tell individuals along the way who he was. And what this started doing is it started causing questions in the public's eye. People started hearing all these rumors and stories of the man from Nazareth. And we all know that famous saying, what good thing comes out of Nazareth? And so there was a lot of confusion, a lot of questions, and people were saying, I heard this Jesus was healing people. And then others were saying, I heard that he turned water to wine at a wedding. And then, of course, you would have others that just said he's nothing but a simple carpenter from the town of Nazareth. And so you had all these different ideas going out and spreading through the community. And so people were genuinely curious as to who is this Jesus? What is he doing here? Is he a prophet? Is he the promised one? And so what ended up happening was, when it was time for Jesus to stand on that mount and give his first sermon to those who were present, any wonder why so many people came to listen? I mean, think about it. If you were there and you were in your town and you just heard that all these rumors about somebody that you'd been waiting for a very long time, just like the Jewish people had been, and there was rumors that, hey, this guy is fulfilling prophecy. This guy is doing miracles, signs, wonders. Would you not be a little bit curious? Or want to at least go check him out and hear what he has to say in order to make a decision on the matter? Well, that is exactly what happened with the Jewish people. Now, one more thing that I want to bring up. There was a standard mindset. Anyone who knows about Pharisees knows that the Pharisees were very prideful. They were very wealthy. They usually had very good health. People would look at them with so much respect and awe at the same time as, I guess, not really liking them. These were holy, pious men who had a lot of influence among the people, and people would look to them to communicate the word of God. Now, if you were living in these times, you could have been a simple poor person. The general idea is that if you were poor, God was not favouring you. If you were sick, God was not favouring you. So if you were poor and sick, I mean, God had left you. And that is one of the reasons why when we look at the disease of leprosy, it was often called the finger of God. It was the curse of God, like you had been disowned. This is one of the reasons why so many people look down upon leprosy so much. When you have this mindset that I'm poor, you know, God isn't there, and you've got these priests that are saying you must come bring your sacrifice, pay your offerings. You know, it was very much focused on a works-based faith. It was very much focused on the fact that if you wanted favor with God, you had to do something for him. And you see, a lot of these people had no money. They couldn't afford to do anything. They struggled to survive with the tax cuts and everything with Rome, as well as wanting to pay their offerings to the church. And so what ended up happening was there was this general state of being poor in spirit. And now, when I say poor in spirit, I'm not just talking about depression. When you look at the original Greek that this verse was written in, we can quickly see that it's not referring to poor when it comes to wealth. It's actually referring to being poor in your mindset and your character. It's almost like a beggar on the street, someone who has no self-worth, someone who has little confidence, and they see that there is nothing good of themselves and they're in need of something else. Now you see, one of the way that these Pharisees would favour themselves and spread all these things around Jerusalem, and these ideas would string up, was the fact that God was with them. He wasn't with the poor person. He was with the wealthy and the healthy, not with the poor and the sick. Now just imagine if this was the belief of our society and you were not very wealthy. Think about how that might affect your mindset on your life, on your worth, on who you are. But now to the good part. All these people that had come, other than the Pharisees that were present, of course, no doubt they've always got to be there to check up on the speaker, make sure he's not blaspheming. But other than them, the people that were present were poor. These were people that were holding out, waiting for their Messiah to come. And when Jesus stood up on that mountain that day, and they all stood there with anticipation, waiting, the very first words that came out of Jesus' mouth was, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Wow. Honestly, what a contradiction to the belief of the day. You see, before we have the righteousness of Jesus in our lives, before we have his spirit living in us and through us, we officially have that status or that title as poor in spirit. To give you an example, there's a verse there in Galatians 4 verse 9 that says, "But now that you know God, or rather are known by God, how is it that you are turning back to these weak and miserable principles? Do you wish to be enslaved by them all over again?" So when it's talking about these principles, it's actually referring to going back into that spirit of poor. Because when we accept Christ, that goes. You see, Paul's just simply asking the believers, you were locked up in a spirit of being poor, and now you have been freed from that through your knowledge and acceptance of Jesus, and now you want to go back to that again? The reality is every single one of us are poor in spirit. The only thing that removes us from that title is having Christ in our hearts and his spirit working in our lives. The moment we lose that, we're back to the same old poor in spirit. So if you were to ask me, am I poor in spirit? Yes, I am. But through Christ and through his spirit, I have a new identity, and I no longer have the title of being poor in spirit, even though I am poor in spirit. Do you want to be freed from being poor in spirit? Do you want to have an experience with Jesus that absolutely moves you, changes your mindset and the way that you think, speak, and act? Well, Jesus is there and he's waiting. The invitation is there. By simply pronouncing, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." That is an invite. That is Jesus saying, "Come to me, I'll give you rest. and I'll put a new spirit within you, and I'll give you a new heart, a heart of flesh, and remove this heart of stone, and no longer will you be poor in spirit. Hey guys, don't go anywhere. Subscribe. Next week you will hear part 2 to this, and we're going to go a little bit deeper into what is actually being said and what is going on in the background once again, which will help this make sense. I guarantee by the end of these videos on the Beatitudes, you will look at the Beatitudes in a whole new light. Not only can you share this with the guys from your church, but through knowing the Beatitudes in this way, not only will you know yourself a little better, but you will know Jesus a whole lot more. Alright guys, I will talk to you again soon, and I'll see you next week. God bless and have a safe week. Bye.